So on this video, we're gonna demonstrate on how to go about cutting, actually preparing the pineapple chunks. Usually we order pineapples from Costco's, and they come frozen inside a pack. So one pack will yield usually five of these shadow pans. One thing I want to mention is when you should never let this sit here more than 2 minutes, and actually just take it out straight from the freezer. It's very important because if you let it thaw out too long, it actually becomes a block of ice when it's frozen. So you want to separate them, because these chunks, when they go from freezer to freezer, from the manufacturer down to Costco down to us, they are maintained frozen, so they are kept in their original frozen state. They do not let them thaw out too long because they'll become unusable. So see how they come out. They basically they're not stuck together. And one thing you want to do is, like, you want to use drain trays, because eventually what's going to happen, they're gonna, as they start thawing out, they will release some juices, and you don't want these pineapples to be swimming pretty much soaked in juices. It doesn't look as appealing. So this will help keep the solid pieces on top. So there's different ways you could do it. You could kind of go ahead and use a scoop here, and just again put some on top. You don't want to put too much, because then you won't be able to close it, but just shake it a bit, and that will help keep it as flat as possible, and you move on. Now, very important, you want to use up the entire contents of the frozen pineapple pack, and like I stated earlier, it's gonna yield about 5 to 6 containers. Okay, now the reason you want to prepare the entire contents is because you don't want to continue taking out the frozen bag in and out the freezer, because eventually what's going to happen is all the thawing of the pineapple bag will cause it to freeze into a large block, and we want to prevent that from happening. Now notice on my cutting board there's a large piece of pineapple chunk. Now I intentionally left this out to show you that occasionally there will be large pieces of pineapple chunks. You want to cut these into bite-sized pieces, about 1 inch or so. Now I want to take a moment to talk about the labeling. Notice that I have 6 trays prepared. Now I'm only going to move to the front, meaning underneath the lowboy, the toppings refrigerator, the amount that I need. Now this will vary based on the season and which day of the week, and whether or not the store has a demand for these pineapples. So let's assume that I need half of these 3, and I'm going to go ahead and move those to the front, and that's when those are the only 3 that I'm going to actually label, because that is when the pineapples will start to thaw out. Okay, now for the remaining trays containing the frozen pineapple pieces, we do not want to label these, because we're going to place these in the freezer. Remember, we only want to label them when they are taken out of the freezer and we start to let them thaw underneath the toppings refrigerator, the lowboy. Okay, now once we let them thaw, we need to keep an eye and be mindful of the use by date shown on the label. The shelf life of pineapples is usually about 3 days. At that point, you'll start noticing, as we near day 3, you'll start noticing the pineapple chunks start to get this color. They start to lose its flavor, and many times they'll even start to brown out. Now remember, you only want to take out the amount that you're going to use. If you take them all out, what's going to eventually tend to happen is that we're going to have too much food loss. So we want to preserve the ones that we are not in use, and label the ones that are being used, and keep an eye on the use by date.